Welcome to our video on using headings in report writing. What are headings and why do we use them? In this 13-minute instructional video, we will answer these questions and learn about the two types of headings as well as the basic rules for the content and the formatting of headings. Before we begin, let's do a visualization exercise. Take a look at this page. Does it look like a page you'd want to read? Probably not. It's covered in text, margin to margin, with no white space at all and no break in ideas at all. Okay, let's try this. Let's add margins. Are you more motivated to read this page? Probably not by much. Let's add some paragraph breaks for a bit more white space and separation of ideas. Well, now we've got a page that you might be willing to tackle, but it still looks fairly overwhelming. Now let's take those same paragraphs and add headings. Is this a page you'd be inclined to try to read? Probably more so than the original that we began with. The major difference was the introduction of headings. Headings are a key characteristic of reports. Since reports are transformational documents that present researched information, they tend to be longer documents, certainly longer than day-to-day transactional documents such as letters, memos, or emails. All of that information can be very hard to follow without visual indicators of how it's organized. Headings therefore provide a visual outline for a large amount of content in a document and are a required component of reports. They also function as a handy way for busy business people to preview the main points of a report. By skimming through the headings of a well-written and well-organized report, readers should have a fairly good idea of what the report is about and what section they should refer to for specific information they may need. These headings are organized by levels. Main sections of the report use Level 1 headings, subsections within those main sections would use Level 2 subheadings, and those sections could be broken down further with Level 3 subheadings, etc. In order to effectively preview the organization of a report, we use two types of headings: functional and descriptive. Functional headings tell us what function or purpose a section serves in a report. These headings appear in thousands of different reports. They are not unique to any particular report and do not provide any information about the specific content of that report. They are, however, very important. We need to know which section functions as the introduction or findings, conclusion, etc. All good reports include at least some functional headings. Here are a few examples. Descriptive headings tell us what the main point or focus of a particular section of the report is. This is a type of heading that helps us understand what a report is about just by skimming. These headings are unique to that report and are unlikely to appear in other reports. Descriptive headings are most commonly used to organize the body of a report, such as the findings, results, solutions, etc. There are three basic rules for the content of headings. They must be concise, specific, and clear. They must be grammatically parallel, and every heading must be followed by text. Like subject lines, the heading should connect very specifically to the function or content of the section. The heading should be as concise as possible, but not so concise that the heading is no longer specific. For example, cost is very concise, but is likely not specific enough to tell the reader what the section says about cost. For example, the cost of what? Lastly, headings must be clear. This doesn't mean that they have to be full grammatically correct sentences. In fact, they shouldn't be. However, they do need to make sense. The series of words chosen must be clear. For example, widgets cost of doesn't make sense. Cost of widgets does make sense. In general, look for opportunities to make your headings more concise by skipping verbs and possibly articles such as a, an, or the, and maybe even prepositions in, on, about, etc., while still maintaining clarity. Consider the following example. Headings or subheadings within any given section of a report need to be grammatically parallel with each other. This means that they all need to be of the same kind. Consider a section called Findings with the following subheadings: Cost of widgets, availability of materials, time. One of these things is not like the others. The third heading would need to become timing of shipments or something like that, or the other two would have to become cost and availability, although those don't really meet the requirements of specificity discussed above. Please note that you don't need to make all headings throughout an entire report parallel, just the ones at the same level within a specific section. For example, all the subheadings of one subheading or all subheadings of a heading, etc. The last important content rule of headings is that headings exist to preview content. This means that every heading must be followed by text. A heading cannot be followed immediately by another heading at any level. This means that if you want to subdivide a section, you need to explain what the whole section is about under the heading in a properly paragraphed format before you introduce the first subheading. Additionally, headings are not part of the text. They are a graphic highlighting technique. Therefore, any idea expressed in a heading is not yet in the report itself unless it's written out as part of the text. This means that you can't refer to a this or an it that wasn't explained in your text, even if it's part of the current heading. Please note that headings are not the same as lists. They are not numbered or bulleted, and they do not begin sentences or introduce lists. There are also some basic formatting rules of headings that are essential to remember. They must be visually distinct and visually consistent. First, headings must be visually distinct. This means that they need to look clearly and obviously different from text to the naked eye. This can be done using formatting tools such as bold, underline, italics, font size, etc. Be careful about using color, as content that is printed or photocopied into black and white may no longer show color differences distinctly to the naked eye. Also, be careful about small increments in font size as well. The second key formatting rule of headings is that they must be visually consistent at each level. Whichever formatting choices were made for the first heading in the document must continue to be made for each and every heading at that level in the entire document. Subheadings at any level follow exactly the same two rules. Headings at any level must be visually consistent with each other throughout the document, regardless of what section they're in, and headings at any level must be visually distinct, both from the text that follows them and from the headings at other levels. Logically, main level 1 headings should be the most visually distinct from text, followed by level 2 headings, then level 3, etc. Keep in mind, though, that at any level, a heading cannot look the same to the naked eye as regular paragraphed text. One of the options to achieve this is to use a temporary left-hand margin for subheadings and their text. We'll discuss this in more detail later on. Here's an example of how headings could be formatted across 3 levels. There are a few other basic formatting rules for headings that you should note and remember related to capitalization, the minimum required number, widows and orphans, and block layout. Headings should be capitalized consistently. You can choose to use either title case capitalization, where you capitalize the first letter of all major words, or sentence case capitalization, where you capitalize only the first word and any proper nouns. Whichever choice you make, stick to it consistently throughout the document. There is no such thing as a single heading or subheading in a section of the report. If you think about it logically for a minute, the purpose of a heading is to divide one section of the report from another section. If there's only one heading or subheading, you've divided part of the content from nothing else, which doesn't make sense. You can't divide by 0. Therefore, if you create a subheading in a section, you need at least one more subheading in that section. Just to be clear, this doesn't mean that every section has to be divided using subheadings, just that where you do decide to divide a section, you need a minimum of 2 subheadings, or sub-subheadings, as applicable. Watch out for widows and orphans. Often, formatting will look very good on your home computer, but when you arrive on campus and print your document, you'll end up with single lines of text alone at the top of a page, or a heading alone at the bottom of a page without its text. These are called widows and orphans. Make sure you edit to fix these while connected to the device from which you plan to print. Make sure that each heading, at any level, is followed, on the same page, by at least 2 lines of the textual paragraph that belong to that heading. Block layout. Most modern documents use block layout as the most professional, consistent formatting choice. Block layout has 3 very simple rules. This means that all headings should be lined up on the left-hand margin of the page along with their text. However, as mentioned earlier, one option to make sure that the various levels of headings are visually distinct is to temporarily shift that left-hand margin. For example, a series of subheadings and their text could be moved to a new left-hand margin ½ an inch in from the original left-hand margin. Sub-subheadings could be further indented. The key is that the headings and their text would still align in a block on their left-hand edge. If you use this formatting option, make sure that each Level 1 heading and text begins at the original left-hand margin and that the indentation for the various other level headings and their text is consistent throughout the entire document. So what have we learned? Headings are a vital organizational and preview tool in report writing. Headings come in 2 types, descriptive and functional, and they follow basic content rules such as needing to be clear, specific, and concise, as well as grammatically parallel, and all headings must be followed by text. As for formatting, headings must be visually distinct and visually consistent. Also, headings can use title or sentence case capitalization. All headings come in a minimum of 2 per section, and finally, headings follow the rules of block layout, which may include temporary indented left-hand margins for subsections. For more information on how to formally package reports, please see the video on formatting formal reports. For more information on reports themselves, please see the videos called What Are Reports and Problem Solution Recommendation Reports. Thank you.